Hello. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another wonderful live stream here on Legalbytes. If you're new here, of course, my name is Alita. I am a lawyer licensed in California and DC. And on this channel, we explain the law one bite at a time. So I'm still waiting on our three guests. I know when I was posting on social media, I hadn't yet heard back from Uncivil Law, but we are going to have Uncivil Law, Legal Mindset, and Nate the Lawyer on this live stream. So I'm very excited to have them. I think Legal Mindset's maybe on his way. Nate said he might be late. Uncivil Law, I saw was on Nick Recade's channel, so maybe he'll hop on over here in a bit as well. But in the meantime, I can do my basic housekeeping here. Of course, if you guys are enjoying this live stream as you're watching, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that kind of stuff, all the great YouTube stuff. And if you want to support the channel, of course, we're going to be getting into some more of this controversial stuff. Anytime we're talking about Gislaine Maxwell, of course, this live stream is probably going to get demonetized. So if you want to support this kind of content, there are links in the description below, so you can do that, including merch. I just got this in today. One of the t-shirts from the merch store. I also have a mug that I'll be drinking out of, so you can actually see for yourself. It's pretty nice. So if you guys are so inclined, of course, like I said, all of those links are in the description below. Otherwise, I'm sure you guys can tell we have a few interesting cases that we'll be talking about today. We will be talking about Jussie Smollett, that trial, and then the Gislaine Maxwell trial, of course, as well. Kim Potter and Bill Cosby, just for funsies. So I guess we can probably get started on Kim Potter, because that one is probably one that we probably don't need to go too much into. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I have some very important stuff that I need to tell you guys before we get into it. So, because I've been doing a lot of live streams, I am working with an editor right now to make clips. And so, because I know that not everybody can sit through all of these live streams for a very long period of time. And because of that, I have decided to start a second channel that is going to be just Legalbytes clips, so that they're all just clips from these various live streams, so that you can kind of get just one of these conversations or a particular exchange or something. So you'll find some shorter bits and pieces from these live streams on Legalbytes clips. So I just started it. It has like, I think 7 subscribers last I checked, because I literally just opened it up. So if you guys are interested in seeing those kinds of things, maybe you can't sit for a full live stream at some point, then the clips are probably a really good thing for you to get a bite-sized piece of one of these live streams. So link is in the description for this live stream to that channel as well, because it's very hard to find, because it's so small and new. So I have 5 videos so far from the live stream that we did on Monday with Andrew Bronca and with Darth Crypto. So there's already some clips on there. I'm going to be uploading some more that I already have from the live stream on Wednesday with Colin Moriarty and with Rick Hogue. So yeah. So anyway, so if you guys are interested in that, please subscribe. It really helps me out, so that I can start, after I have enough people subscribed, then I can probably start tagging people in it. Like, any of these videos, I can tag anybody. I can tag any other YouTuber in them. And it kind of helps to sort of get the video out there, because if people are looking for that other person or something, it just tends to come up more. So yeah, so if you guys do want to subscribe there, really does help me out. All right, I already see some people in the chat saying that you subscribe. I am so excited. Hey, Kenosha County I is here. Thanks so much for checking in. That's really cool. We're really happy to have you here as well. So anyhow, okay. So with that said, I think now I can probably start to get into some of these subjects. I think maybe we'll talk about Kim Potter first, because that's kind of maybe a little bit of a shorter subject right now, because we're in week 1 of the Kim Potter trial. If you're not familiar with that case, this was a police officer out of Minnesota who shouted "taser, taser, taser." She pulled out what she says that she thought was her taser, and it was not a taser, it was a gun. And then now there's a fatality that resulted from that incident. So now she's on trial in a criminal case for murder or manslaughter. And so now in Minnesota, they are still trying to seat the jury. Last I checked, I think Rekieta said yesterday at the end of the day, there was 7 jurors that were seated. So they still have a ways to go. It is very, very slow moving. If you were watching the Kyle Rittenhouse trial from the very beginning, they seated a jury in like a day. Whereas here, it's been a very long time, a little bit closer to maybe what happened in the Ahmaud Arbery trial, where it took them a full week to seat the jury. So that can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing. It, you know, if you're watching for entertainment purposes, it's definitely a bad thing because it is boring. It's boring when you are sitting there and watching a lot of these same questions being asked of people, trying to get a feel for whether people are being honest or dishonest. I mean, that part is kind of interesting, I guess. But I know that the judge in that particular case also has a very soothing voice, very soothing. It's an ASMR voice. She's very calming, and she is very. She would make for a very good yoga instructor or maybe a meditation instructor. But maybe, yeah, someone said the judge is a human sleeping pill. Yeah. I was thinking she's a human melatonin is kind of what I was thinking. But she's hopefully, you know, things will pick up after they seat the jury. But we'll see. I mean, so far it seems like that is basically where that case is at. She also told the potential jurors, don't be surprised if you are still here on Christmas Eve, which sucks. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little bit of a different kind of a person. I would love to sit on a jury at some point. That's something that I've always thought that I would love to do, just to have the experience of it, having been a litigator and whatnot. But I don't know that I would want to be on that trial sitting all the way through Christmas, because that kind of sucks up your entire holiday season. And if that's important to you, that's maybe not the most ideal time to be sitting on a jury, especially one of potentially national importance, right? So, yeah. So that case is going to be interesting moving forward. We'll see. Like I said, hopefully that one will pick up. But another one that was, oh, hey, we have our first guest here.
How's everybody doing?
How are you?
Good. Can you hear me all right? I'm on the backup camera on the backup mic.
Okay.
Bathroom. So
I was gonna say, it looks like you have finally been able to upgrade now that you're at 20,000 subscribers. You finally been able to upgrade out of the bathroom, but it looks like you're actually literally in a bathroom now.
Well, no, actually, no. I'm actually so this is this area of the hotel room I'm in right now in Busan. I'm out of Seoul for one night tonight down here in Busan, which is on the southern tip of South Korea. But I am not joking when I say I have my light panel that I brought, and I forgot my stand, so it's propped up on my suitcase, which is in the bathroom. So the bathroom is involved tonight in one way, shape, or form. But it is good to be here, Alita. I would always be here for you whenever you call me.
Thank you.
No matter what time of the morning it is.
And it is very early for you, right?
Yes. It is 2:39 a.m. But I love you guys, and you know what? These cases are worth it because they are that important.
Yes, absolutely. So I was about to get into actually, you know, before you were getting in here, I was maybe going to go into Bill Cosby, but now that you're here, let's talk about Jussie Smollett, because you've been talking about this case on a daily basis.
Yes. Well, look, it's the one that pisses me off the most. It's the one that, look, you know, certain things make me mad. You know, when I see pineapple on pizza, it makes me very mad. You know, that's a very triggering thing for me, right? When I go, yeah, very reasonable. When I go to get Italian food here and they give you pickles, you know, I mean that also makes me kind of mad. But Juicy, as I always call him Juicy because Juicy Smooth, because the Chappelle skit. I don't know if you ever saw that one.
I didn't, but I saw you talking about it on one of your live
streams. Google it right. You know what? Right now, put yourself on mute. Go watch that video, Legalbytes, and then come back, and I will just be talking to the chat until then.
I'll leave my channel to you.
I'll take over your stream. It's fine.
All right. Well,
but
yeah.
No, but literally, the reason why this one, look, to me, it's something that is so bad, is so abhorrent, that I believe that the punishment should be much more severe than even what's at stake here, right? Because what's at stake here is actually disorderly conduct, frankly, for lying for the police. And this case, in case you guys have forgotten, in case you guys, it's going back in history because this happened, at this point years ago, right? But Jussie Smollett, right? He faked, essentially, and this is why he's at trial right now, because over a faked racist attack, right? He claimed that two people beat him up, right? Yelling racist and homophobic slurs, including the famous line, "This is MAGA country," right? Referencing MAGA being Make America Great Again. And this was when then President Donald Trump was in office campaigning for re-election, right? So this was part of that larger movement, right? To say, okay, we're anti-Donald Trump. We're going to vote against Trump. This next election cycle, we're going to go against Trump because everybody who supports him is racist and is a bigot, is whatever, right? And apparently this attack occurred at 2 a.m. While he was getting Subway in Chicago, downtown Chicago. And not only that, but it was revealed that the people who did it were actually two Nigerian brothers. We all know Nigerians, the most racist people out there, the most homophobic people out there. So yeah, no, absolutely horrible. It's going on right now. And the defense for Jussie has been that actually, what happened was he's still the victim, right? He's still the victim because these two Nigerians are sophisticated criminals, right? Which, frankly, I've even viewed as racist in and of itself because I feel like it's playing off that Nigerian criminal stereotype, right? What are you trying to say? They're Nigerians and therefore they're criminal, right? I mean, and it's just at trial, there's more and more facts coming out that are showing that he's not credible. The detectives testifying are saying, just how the procedures, everything involved here just points towards him setting it up. He's the only guy, and some of these detectives testified to this. One predicate here is that this is not televised, not because it's federal court. This is not Maxwell, right? This is not, some other federal case. This is still a state case. However, celebrities have a right to publicity, right? And almost all states have incorporated this. And because his image could get put out there, and God forbid his image, his voice, his face get out without him being able to drift off that and being able to market that. Because of that, they're not showing any of this trial. They're not televising.
Hey, don't knock the grift, man.
I love the grift. Don't get me wrong. Why am I here? Come on. Me, I'm with you and Nate. You guys are the professional grifters, but that's why I love you guys. So
amen to that, brother.
Yeah, so that's exactly why we're here. And we're just hearing the story where he's coming out, painting himself as a victim of these two guys. And it's coming out that, no, this is something that he filmed, this is something he rehearsed. Testimonies coming out that he had a dress rehearsal for this. There's video of him going by the exact spot of the attack with the brothers, pointing to the camera, right? Not turning over his phone, right? He's one of the few that did not turn over his phone. And when he did turn over text messages, they were heavily redacted, right? He also didn't turn over his full medical records. So there's all this information that was held out, and it's just why? The only reason that seems to make sense is because this is an artificial incident, which I think was the conclusion most people came to. What I get worked up about is not whether I think it's guilty or innocent, because I think there's guilt in this case. What I get worked up about is that I think the punishment needs to be something more than what they're predicting, which is a slap on the wrist and community service. I think there needs to be some time on this because this is something that's abhorrent. And even the judge said, the most abhorrent thing about this is that he used the noose, right? Because he knew the power of that tool. He knew that you bring out the noose, like that's a strong signal, right? But doing that is just so culpable. And I think to prevent copycats, to prevent other incidents, to prevent anything happening like this, and to show that our justice system does not support this, I think the punishment should be more than just a slap on the wrist. That's my position. I get worked up about that. But these brothers, they're on the stand right now. They're being cross-examined today. So far, it seems like they're credible witnesses. There isn't anything fundamentally flawed in their testimony. The defense hasn't been able to pick them apart yet. So that's where we're at the trial. It's still going on right now.
Nate,
wow!
How are you?
I came in at a very interesting. I came in at an interesting point. You're like, oh Lord, who are you talking about?
You missed the part when he turned into a Tasmanian devil and just started taking everything down.
It's a spinning chair, so this will actually work.
I think one of the in the Jussie Smollett case, one thing I'm going to say is that the legal issue here is so incredible about the double jeopardy issue. So remember when he was arrested before, and they said all this stuff, and then they dismissed the charges, and he paid the $10,000. He gave up the $10,000 bail or whatever, and then his lawyers were going out saying, well, he was not innocent, right? He was not. He was innocent. His lawyers are going out there. He's innocent. He was never charged. They dismissed the cases. All this stuff. One thing I found that because they did what's known as decline of prosecution. We call it the DP here in New York, decline of prosecute. So the police arrest you, and instead of charging you with the crime, they say, all right, we're going to decline to prosecute, meaning that you are never in jeopardy of having a criminal prosecution. You're declined to prosecute. And when they did that for him, he gave up his bond for the DP. But then when they recharged him, he was saying, well, hold on, I was prosecuted before. And the judge was like, well, no, you're not you weren't prosecuted before because they declined to prosecute. So now they're saying, well, that declination of prosecution didn't prevent them from prosecuting you in the future. They're just saying, we're not prosecuting you now. So that's why the double jeopardy thing is not an issue in this case as of right now, even though the defense is trying to really make it a big issue. But it's the fact that he got that preferential treatment is the reason why he's in the case that he's at now. So it just shows you sometimes, you think something is so great, but at the back end, it screws you at the end. So now he's doing a trial because he got, because Kim, what was her name? Kim Potter? No, not Kim Potter. Whatever.
No, Kim Potter's the other trial.
Yeah.
I forget. All I remember was that the original prosecutor, I remember that like Michelle Obama was intervening on that point, right? And even Kamala was speaking up about it at that point. And they had to eventually bring in the special prosecutor in order to actually bring the charges.
Yes.
So, ultimately this was so, and come on, it's Chicago. So, of course they got to bring in a pinch hitter, for this.
A lot of people kept asking me, like, I did the whole tweet about, Kamala Harris, her thing about oh, he's such a great guy, he's my friend, and all the liberals, right after it happened. And so a lot of people kept coming to me like, yo, Nate, I want to ask you, what did you say when you first heard it? You weren't outraged? And I'm going to tell you, people, I'm going to go on record right now. When I first heard the Jussie Smollett case, I remember sitting there watching my wife, and my wife was all outraged. Oh my God, can you believe it? First thing I said was, 2 white guys in the middle of Chicago and 2:00 at night with rope and bleach? What the hell? Who does that?
It just seems a little too on the nose, right?
And Subway
in minus in 20-degree weather, waiting 4 hours for him. I'm like, yo, at least these guys were like either super dedicated to the cause, or and plus, and then when I found out that his plane was supposed to come in at like 12 and got delayed by 2 hours, I'm like, something's just not right here, babe. This doesn't make any sense. It's just like 2 white guys with MAGA hats in the middle of the hood in Harlem wrestling me up, right? We found you, Nate. We found you. Those guys probably wouldn't make it down the block in the middle of the night. I'm like, come on, really? This doesn't make any sense. And from that point on, I was sympathetic. I was like, well, if this happened, then these people had to, number one, know what time he was going to be there, had been following his travel plans, had prepared. They had to be, this is not somewhere you just walk to, right? You had to be sitting out there for 4 hours with rope and bleach at 2:00 in the morning in Chicago,
and a MAGA hat,
in sub-freezing weather. Yeah. It's just like, it just didn't add up. And then when eventually the dominoes rolled, my wife was like, oh, so you all right? I was like, yeah, because the first thing you're going to say is, who the hell, 2 white guys in the middle of the hood in Chicago? That just doesn't make any sense, right? In the middle of the night. But I think what happens is, the problem is that I think the problem on the other side was, why would a successful actor at the peak of his career, right? This guy's at the peak of his career. Why would he do this?
Hubris.
Well, he was in the middle of contract negotiations. That was one of the things. So apparently there were contract negotiations that he was in the middle of, and this was something that takes you from one level up to the next level in terms of your publicity and where you're at, right? So he would be up to like Kaepernick level grifting, right? At that level, right? So I mean, and this was in the era of Kaepernick. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, what I've been reading about it is that they apparently he got an actual death threat a drawing of like a little stick man wearing a MAGA hat hanging him or something like that. And he was upset that his producers or his employer essentially was not taking his death threat or the death threat that he received seriously enough. And that was like supposedly his motivation for it. I mean, someone
Is that been proven at trial yet? Because I haven't.
No,
that's a new
but
fact
I mean,
that...
I think that's what
you're saying it, and I'm like, I don't believe this shit.
I think that's what the prosecutors are saying. I mean, this is what I was reading.
Stick figure with a MAGA hat, you know. I mean, that's. I'll tell you one right now.
It's not favorable to him if that's true. Let's just put it that way,
Yeah,
right? Because I mean, it just gives a reason for him, for him to go on this dalliance, right? Where he's creating this whole scenario to make himself a victim. It could be a victim mentality. I don't know. Like there are all kinds of reasons.
It's TDS.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw TDS and how bad TDS hits people bad. I mean, look, I got an aunt. She's said some things and done some things. I mean, literally, just Trump being in office was, enough to inflict her with emotional harm. So it's just a living out of what their internal experience, right? They believe internally that this is happening.
You guys, I don't know if you guys have come from that other side. I have. I've come from that deep, entrenched liberal maniac side. Like I was there. I was deranged with Trump. I was like, oh, this guy's a MAGA racist and that God, I hate this guy. No, Trump. When he won, I was like, oh, the world's gonna end. I was on that side. And it was interesting because, just coming to YouTube really exposed me to how stupid all that was. How stupid all the like even with the Kyle Rittenhouse case. When Trump first came out with we got to look at the facts. It looks like he was defending himself. We'll see, right? He was 100% right. First thing I heard from me, he's a racist warmonger who supports this kid, and I'm like, that's not at all what happens. And now my position is that a lot of people who have TDS, it's because they've been fed all these fake facts that are not true and are being told all these things and are not hearing the points from the other side. Like this still today. I still got to tell people Kyle didn't shoot black people. Today,
they're still saying it.
Kyle didn't shoot black people, right?
Yeah.
And the people who changed me from where I was at to where I'm at now are people like Viva and people like Uncivil Law, because I'm like, these guys aren't unreasonable. What these guys are saying is actually true. And then looking at the facts, and the reason why, like, for instance, my channel is all this facts first right now is because, they would say the left always says you got to be woke. I had to be woken up from them.
From being
and
woke.
when I was woken up, I had to wake up from being woke. But when it happens,
it's like Inception. Like, what level of depth are you actually at?
Yeah.
But when it happened, and I realized how much of a fool I was for believing all that stuff, then now I can say, guess what? Like, I can now say Biden is a POS, right? I can confidently say that because he is, right? And not fit. And it's almost freeing because the truth is what it is. And that's why we're all anti-media. Don't let the media tell you what the truth is, because they're feeding you lies. And that's what I had to overcome. And that's what a lot of these people have to overcome. So that's why I feel for them more than I make fun of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. No,
let me get the super chat really quick, and then we'll continue. So Britt Cormier says, I missed the show yesterday, but listened to most of it this morning. As you guys were talking about post-apocalypse justice, I was thinking how well that matched up with the American West justice. Juxtaposition of past and future was amazing. So yesterday I had Colin Moriarty and I had Rick Hogue on here talking about I titled it generally video games, law, and society, but we were talking mostly about one game in particular, The Last of Us, and The Last of Us Part 2, its sequel. But it was all about a post-apocalyptic world and kind of taps into sort of this like mob rule, mob justice kind of thing. And how when you try to get, your own vengeance on someone else, how it just turns into like this vicious cycle of vengeance. And, it's like it ends up coming back to you in so many different ways. So thanks, Britt, for the super chat, for bringing that up, because I mean, it fits in. I was thinking about all of that mostly with Kyle Rittenhouse, with that trial coming up, or all, everything that we were looking at with the rioters and the looters and all that kind of stuff. But this one kind of fits also in a similar sort of way with Jussie Smollett. it seems like, correct me if this is maybe a mischaracterization, but to me it seems like this is just one way of somebody trying to get some personal vengeance, either on with TDS or with with the political currents of the day or something. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I agree with that. I mean, it's lashing. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say one thing. Is that a Legalbytes shirt that I'm looking at right now?
Oh yeah,
your shirt. Oh my God,
she's a professional grifter. Come on, she's already got the merch. She's the queen.
I'm like, oh my God.
By the way, I have to tell you.
My shirt.
Oh yeah. T-shirts. I've got the mugs. I mentioned it at the beginning before
I saw that. You really got the good stuff out there. It's great.
Yeah.
I hate you. I hate you now. Go ahead, Legal Mindset. I'm so sorry. I just noticed the shirt.
No. You are free to call out the grift anytime, 24/7. I love it.
I love it. I'm about to put some out.
Let me give you guys one little bit of fun information. So you guys know that I managed to get Natalie Wisco for an interview on Saturday. So excited about that. And we were kind of chatting beforehand and just kind of about the trial and whatnot. She was kind of sort of feeling me out to see if it was going to be a good option to come onto the channel. And I'm glad that she did, because we had a chance to kind of chat. One of the things that she said kind of early on was, oh, by the way, Mark loves your Hocus Pocus Out of Focus t-shirt. And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, that's awesome. Like, he actually likes the t-shirt that I put, that's awesome. So I was like, tell him that he can have a free t-shirt. Like, just give me a size and color and like where to send it. Like 100%, I will totally send him a free t-shirt. So hopefully awesome. She gets back to me on that, and I can somehow find some picture of Mark Richards wearing that t-shirt. That would like make my year. Anyway, so it all comes full circle.
Now you've got me picturing him in a Legalbytes t-shirt, which is totally throwing me off right now. That mental image is totally throwing me off. It's just about as weird.
It's about as focus.
Hold on, to bring it back, it's about as weird as a Nigerian in a MAGA hat. That's
there
all I'm saying. That's all I am saying. By the way, one of the detectives used the term "black as sin" to describe the brothers, and I'm like, I'm not sure that term's in vogue anymore. It's almost like it's like half a step to a hard R. I'm like, maybe we're not talking about like
So Smollett's lawyer said they were wearing whiteface. He said they were wearing whiteface.
Yeah. So what the detective was saying was it's in contrast. It's in stark contrast to these guys. So yeah, funny stuff. But yeah, no, like Nate said, I think the procedural parts are absolutely fascinating about this case, and we'll see where it goes. I mean, I'm still going to be tracking it, and it's just another one of the cases that's going on right now. I mean, I think we need to address the kind of monkey in the room or elephant in the room is that all the cases are happening right now. It's really weird,
all at one time.
Yeah, and it's difficult to even cover them. I mean, because they're all going at a time, even with so many lawyers, even with an invoice of lawyers, it's difficult to cover all these cases.
Yeah. It's interesting to me with the Jussie Smollett, the extent to which his lawyers are going to be able to paint this picture that the other two guys just made up this whole story, because I'm not convinced that they're going to be able to do that. I mean, it is already suspicious. I will say, as I was kind of reading up on it, trying to get caught up, I'm trying to look at this as objectively as possible, because I know my of course I try, right? But I know that my instinct is to say, oh, he's guilty as hell, like this it just looks it's too on the nose, right? Like we were saying earlier. But trying to look at it as objectively as possible. Like, okay, let's say I'm a juror in this trial and I'm looking at this. Even still, it's like, I feel like I'm having to fight the urge to feel a little bit sus about a lot of these details, like the fact that he didn't give access to his phone. Okay. He's a celebrity and he's worried that, people are going to get access to whatever. I think even still, like, we're not talking about just the general public. We're talking about the cops. And when you yourself made a police report on something, so it seems like you would want to help as much as possible, right? It's so, and then also, like, Oh, what's up, Nate?
No,
Devil's advocate.
No, because I could see myself being in that position where somebody robs me and the cop is like, "Let me get your phone." I'm like, "What the hell you need my phone for? Like, get the guy who robbed me. Why do you need to go on my phone?" So
the reason though was that he said that he had gotten a threatening phone call like the day before, or 2 days before, and they were like, "Okay, let's see your phone." He's like,
So
"No."
Given that, why
That's true.
exactly? Given that, and that's part of your statement, and it's like, well, we kind of need to validate that. You can't just tell us stuff and we believe you. And he's probably used to him just saying stuff and people taking him at his word on his face, and not questioning what he does. But when you're dealing with law enforcement, they have a duty to follow up with this, right?
See, I didn't know that fact before, but if that's the case, then Legalbytes, I was 100% wrong. You're right. Yeah, you give up your phone at that point in time, especially if you're saying you're getting that threatening messages. Yeah.
Yeah. And also people are saying that the hate letter that he supposedly received is also probably fake. I haven't actually seen a picture of it, but somebody said that it actually is pretty funny if you look at it. So I'm trying to look it up to see if maybe we can find it.
I just imagine like the most comical thing of like a really shitty drawn stick figure, with the hat, it's like a MAGA angry face, like just real bad.
I mean, how bad would it be? So Theophrastus 3.0 said jurors to be selected for ability not to laugh. How bad would it be if you're in the middle of trial and jurors are starting to giggle on the sides?
Yeah.
Like,
I imagine that voir dire would be kind of funny too. It's like, have you ever watched Empire? Do you like it? No? Motion to strike. This one is against our client because he doesn't like Empire. You know what I mean?
I think I found it, guys. I think I found the letter.
Oh, let's see the picture. Hold on, let me turn off this coffee. It's like, I don't know if you guys hear it in the background.
I don't know why this video is.
No, I have
get rid of this thing.
My hotel coffee
embedded videos.
But this is.
Oh my god! Are you kidding me? That is like a.
That's what my daughter likes. Like she drew. Yeah, my daughter likes what she drew.
It's like he took his non-dominant hand and decided to write with that one. Like.
Yeah,
this will make me look like a crazed MAGA person.
And he did the letter thing. That's like, this is what you would do if you're LARPing. If you're LARPing a serial killer, is you glue stuff. That is literally what you do in a TV show for children, right? Like when children are trying to put this together. I mean, it's ridiculous. This is a burn book level thing, from Gossip Girl. This is ridiculous. Or Mean Girls.
Yeah, or Gossip Girl.
Or Gossip Girl, both of them actually.
Yeah.
Any girl, really.
Hey now.
Sorry.
I think that my drawing skills are a little bit better than this. Also, is this a power tool? Is this supposed to be a power tool? I'm not sure exactly what this is. Maybe it's a narwhal. It's a mini narwhal.
Maybe I should sell like replica Juicy Smooth, hate letters. I mean, that's good merch.
Maybe. And also this person here has 3 eyeballs apparently, or is that a tear? Maybe that's a tear coming from his eye.
Yeah, it's a MAGA teardrop tattoo because that's standard in MAGA country.
Yeah, this is interesting to say the least. Like I don't want to be prejudicial to this case, right?
But hold on, because let me say, so Legalbytes, you're so resisting this, but I think it's okay to be biased in favor of the facts and the law.
Well,
in the Rittenhouse case, when we came into that, we were biased in favor of the facts and the law, and you acknowledge that, hey, there's a resting state of the law and the facts, and there's a resting state coming into it, and it's fine to say, this is a trial which coming into it, the facts and the law are with you or against you. That's very objective. It's not wrong to think that. Now, as lawyers, we can objectively say there's a presumption of innocence. We're giving them that. We're giving them that in spades. However, when the facts of the law are clear, I think it's fine to feel strongly about a case. Yeah. I mean, that's how Nate's able to call each one successfully. Shout out to Nate on that one, because he feels a way about it, and he feels a certain way about the facts and the law, both being a lawyer and being a reasonable person.
Yeah,
right?
I think for me, it's I always want to leave the door open a little bit for evidence to convince me another way. But at the same time, it's in this particular case, I also know that my immediate inclination is to say that he's full of shit. So I'm kind of just pushing back on my own instinct there, just to see, like, is that proper or is that actually based on fact? Like that's my struggle always. But getting these kind of facts and whatnot, like, yeah, like this absolutely looks ridiculous. This looks like it was drawn by a child, and or somebody that was inspired by the Burn book in Mean Girls, of course.
Girls,
like
yeah.
it looks ridiculous.
Yeah.
The Bird book.
Yep. And look, I think the burden is on them. The burden's on the defense to bring up that evidence that would convince me that I'm completely wrong about this, right? So I mean, I'm going into it. Look, yes, if evidence comes out that totally, exonerates him, totally makes it defensible, right? That's fine. I'll back off and say, Miss Guzzi, I was wrong, right? But that's on them. That's on these guys to come up and show it. Until then, guilty as hell.
Yeah.
It's funny because who pays their people with a check, right? Like you pay them, like if you literally pay them with a check.
Yeah.
All right, buddy.
Which there's also a dispute about what the $3,500 payment is for. I mean, because the brothers are saying, yeah. So it's interesting to see how that's sort of playing out, because for anybody that isn't as familiar with this detail, but he
was talking to them before, and he said that one of the arguments is they were personal trainers. This was for personal training services, blah, blah, blah. And they did have prior conversations, but that's also a lie, because he's screwed either way, because he told detectives, his statement of detectives, when he'd never seen him before. They didn't know the brothers, right? But then the story is coming out that, oh, wait, actually you did. Right. And even if initially you were talking to them about personal training and this flipped over into, hey, you guys are kind of gig workers, right? You guys kind of just do stuff, right? Well, how about you do this stuff for me? I mean, once again, you can see the picture coming together and how he's changing his story as it goes.
Yeah. But what I was reading specifically about the $3,500 is that the defense is saying, thanks, Andy.
Watch Mean Girls. Everybody in the chat watch Mean Girls too.
Mean Girls.
Who doesn't? It's a cult classic. It is a perfect movie. It is absolutely perfect.
Girls,
I love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
How you understand girls and how they make no sense. But yes,
it's Girl World and the Wild World are exactly the same. I can tell you from my own experiences, it can be wonderful and it can also be terrible, all at the same time and in the same day, in the same hour. Fetch. Yes, exactly. It's so fetch. So anyway, but the $3,500, what the defense is saying is that he paid them $3,500 to help him to get in shape for a music video that he was going to be making. I didn't even know that he was involved in music or music videos or anything, but they were saying no, the $3,500 was for this, exactly all of this stuff that you guys all know about. So, but I guess they were friends, and so the Nigerian guys were saying no, we were helping him with getting in shape just as friends, and the payment was not for that, it was for this whole thing. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of evidence comes out to push that $3,500 either into one box or into the other. I mean, depending on if the jury's even willing to hear, to hear evidence on that kind of stuff. They may have made up their mind on other stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyhow, but that's an interesting case, and it's also fun because nobody died in it. So it's a little less grim.
Yeah.
Well, no, his career died. His career took his career. Well,
and integrity died.
Smollett's career.
Yeah, like I said, I think this is something that people shouldn't go unpunished for their for lying, right? I think in candor is a very important thing, in general in society, and I think right now what we're seeing, especially in the wake of the Kyle Rittenhouse case, is unprecedented ability. We still see people calling Kyle a white supremacist. It really bothers me, just going, off on this narrative and going down this rabbit hole of everybody's a white supremacist. I'm a white supremacist. Nate's a white supremacist. We're all white supremacists. Everybody's a white supremacist.
If you came out in favor of Kyle Rittenhouse, especially, right?
Yeah, you're a white supremacist. It's like, okay, sure, yeah, great.
It's so crazy because support Kyle. White supremacists support, George Floyd was murdered. You're a BLM activist. Oh, then it's like you're a white supremacist. Then I went back to BLM activist when I said Arbery was murdered. It's like crazy. It's crazy because you know what happens? We're in those boxes. And for someone like me, people can't figure out what box I'm supposed to be in, right? I'm in the ultra conservative box, but then it's like, well, but he's in this liberal box because he's saying these things too. So it's just like, at this point in time, I feel like we're free. We say what we feel, right? And we don't care about the political blowback. And if people like what we say, then that's fine. But can no one say that I've ever told them an opinion that I didn't believe, and now they just happen to be right? That's what the streak is about, right? If I was on one side, then I would have been wrong on many times, right? But I'm not, because I don't care what people think. I just care about, here's the law, here's the facts, and here's what I think should happen. So what?
Yeah. I think I'm in the box of facts. That's the box that I choose to live in.
Yeah.
The facts and the law, right?
So what do you guys think about the this? Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I mean, it's always all facts and law. I wanted to hear which one Alita was going to transition to here, because we got a lot of cases to cover tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you guys about the Chads. What is it? The Chad Kyle 2.0 case.
I'm so done with that case. I am over it. I told my chat, I'm like, how many of you guys are sick and tired of hearing this? And it was like a wall of ones in the chat. There's like one guy who put a 2, just to trigger me, just to piss me off. But other than that, it's ones, because it's the horse that's been ridden all the way out to Lubbock and then it died. Right. Yeah.
And then it got beaten, and then somebody decided to make mincemeat.
No, and then after all of that, they don't press charges at the glue factory. So it's like this.
There may be charges still pressed though. Did you see the new developments? You guys ever seen the new developments?
I saw the civil case being filed, which I think is a very interesting thing for us to talk about.
Because that's something that we didn't really talk about, is the potential civil liability.
That's a separate thing. I think that's more interesting.
Yeah.
Because don't forget that you have the wife now who filed papers saying that she wants to divorce him because he's under a murder investigation. So it's like he's starting to get, the police reports have come out saying that he's.
I thought he was married to a judge, and he was having this affair with this ex-wife woman.
He may have been having an affair, but he's already been divorced. He's divorced. It's done. The just wife of Kyle.
Which he are we talking about? Chad or
Kyle?
I'm talking about Kyle here. Let me. I think I have the news report here. Let me pull it.
Kyle's been divorced.
I thought he was still married to a local judge.
No, he was married. No, during the proceedings, he literally said, "Hey, I want to get remarried soon, so I want to, I'm worried about the waiting time. Judge, can you waive the waiting time?" This is before the shooting, so he's already did this. All of this stuff was before that. He was married to a judge that was appointed by Governor Abbott. Okay. So once again, very interesting situation here all around. But I think that's been finalized. If it wasn't finalized, it was the procedures were already in place way before.
I didn't pay as much attention to those details because it wasn't so pertinent to the it wasn't as pertinent to the self-defense analysis.
It's pertinent to the interpersonal relationship, which at the core, understanding the motivations and who the parties are. No, because that's what drove them to this unreasonable.
The drama.
But that's what makes it unreasonable. That's why there was this alpha gorilla behavior going on with the nipple rubbing. That doesn't happen unless you've got that level of drama. Right, and that's baby mama drama, right? Because that's what this was.
This was the ultimate baby mama drama, which is sad.
The old guy and the new guy, and who's slinging, what? It's a whole case of that.
Yeah,
I gotta find this because I was looking at it this morning, and they said that there was papers filed with I'm not sure if it's the wife or the girlfriend, but I don't know. But I'll find it. I'll check it out again. Okay. But essentially, she was saying something like that. But even with this case, though, it's really split the whole crew, though, because I know how half the people are saying it's self-defense, the other half is saying it's murder. So I'm like, what the hell,
Yeah.
And I,
you know what it was, Nate? You were still busy with the Arbery trial when we started to fight about it. And so you were like blissfully unaware of like the tornado that was going on. What's up?
Yeah. No. I was saying we were fighting about it because we were all fighting about it. Me and you were disagreeing about it. Everybody's disagreeing about it. We're going into this that I'm we're shooting off tweets, we're shooting off videos.
And on different levels of it
to people's videos. Yeah.
Like whether there was, I was hooked on, I was like hung up on whether there was provocation or.
And then I'm going crazy Second Amendment on this because I'm like, all right, you guys are all soft on the Second Amendment. You're all pussies. So let me go over here and go hard on the Second Amendment because I'm like listening to these arguments. I'm like, wait a second. You were doing frame by frame analysis. We're arguing that this has nothing to do with that self-defense has nothing to do with the Second Amendment. I'm like, hold on. If I've got a gun and I can't use it, then that is taking away my Second Amendment, right? I mean, because if I can't use my weapon, right, and then what's the point, right? So, once again, all of these things were coming in, right? And these are different perspectives and even different biases. I'll admit that, even different biases that people were coming in to analyze this with.
Yeah, because this is what is the I know Andrew Blanca, he's done his thing, which I agree with, but this is the thing that
And I disagree with.
yeah. So does Nick. Nick disagrees with it too. This is the thing that I can't that I think is going to be the crux of it. At this point in time, is this person, because for the audience, there's generally four elements to self-defense, so to justify self-defense. Number one, provocation, an imminent threat, proportional force, and reasonableness. So here, is this an imminent threat? Can he say the person who's unarmed is an imminent threat to his safety in such a way where you're talking about where this guy is threatening his life or severe physical injury? I can't say yes, but I can't say no, right? It's like when he releases that shot, I don't see how you can say that he's an imminent threat.
Yeah, I don't see him moving at all. I don't see like that, at least from this angle. Like this, but
once again, I'm just going to point out, guys, it's a freeze frame. I object to any viewing, and I've said I will not view anything slowed down, stopped, freeze frame by frame. I'll view it the whole thing, the whole context. And you tell me when we're playing that active video that's a long time. It's not. We only see it because we see the freeze frame. We assume that but I'm saying, Nate, this video, just pausing it here, gives you the instance that this is a paused moment, right? It through. Yes, it gives you a different feeling. Ron Coleman brought this up, that actually in court, going frame by frame analysis has been objected to as prejudicial, and I agree.
It should be. But what I'm saying is the reason why I'm not playing the whole thing is obviously because I want to keep hopefully keeping this demonetized.
Please.
It's already demonetized, but that's fine.
No, you'll be monetized. You'll be monetized.
Yeah. So I didn't want to play the shots and everything because obviously you can't tell anybody getting shot, but. We're talking about maybe a second, so it's the context is 10 feet away. It's just hard for me to think, even though the person's not running, because we've all seen the video. The person's not running at the person's standing there. Yeah, he did throw him, but then when he's 10 feet away and he points the gun, unless you can tell me he's an imminent threat, then it's just hard to overcome that imminence piece of it. I think you got everything else. You got the non-provocation. I think you got everything else. But you don't have, that is he an imminent threat? And I think that's where this thing is going to turn. For me, I think I can make an argument that he's not, but then I also think you can make an argument that he is. And that's what I think everybody's getting tripped up on.
Yeah, I think so. So anyhow, oh my gosh, we could spend so much time.
This is why I'm like, there are videos out there. We have all done videos. Check out Legalbytes' videos on that. Check out our tweets on that. Check out my videos on that. Nate, have you done a video on this? I'm sure you have.
Oh no, I have not. What I'm doing, I'm taking a different tack to it. Instead of giving my opinion, what I'm just doing is I'm going to lay out the law, and then lay out the facts, and then I have the fans
and
decide.
let the viewer decide.
Yeah, just is it not? Nate. Call it a day.
No, I mean that's
how I usually do it.
That's a good way to do it. Yeah, and that's
on the divisive issues. On the divisive issues that where it's a point where literally people can come out one way or another. That's interesting.
Yeah. Because what it does is let the person, it's a reasonable person. So how reasonable are you? Is it reasonable for him to shoot him? Some people are going to say yes. Some people are going to say
it's
no,
reasonable in Texas. Which is once again we get into this. A lot of people from Texas reached out and said this is fine. Put me on a jury, I'll be fine. People from Lubbock reached out and said, yeah, in Lubbock the perception is this is totally fine. This is not a bad shoot. Even though there's people that reached out and said, in our community, Kyle's considered an a-hole. He's a jerk. But in terms of the action itself, no jury's going to convict on that. That's what people have said from Texas.
Yeah.
No, I believe it. I believe it.
Just wanted to point out for the mods, I just turned on subscribers only mode in the chat because we started getting some major spam from random people. So hopefully that'll help their job a little bit. So I already kind of talked. I touched on the Kim Potter trial at the beginning before you guys came on because there's really not that much to talk about yet. They're still seating a jury. It's long. It's boring. We've got ASMR judge, who's putting everybody to sleep. But I mean, unless there's anything besides
you
that
enjoy
you guys
judge, Lita, you don't enjoy lullaby time voice.
I mean, for me, at the hour that it is over here, for me, it's great because then I can just go to bed afterwards. I can just lie down in a nice shavasana pose, dead man's pose, and just fall right to sleep. Happy little thoughts.
Yep.
but you know, yeah, it's hard when you actually want to be actively paying attention. But Juan Correa, I'm sorry, we moved on from the Kyle Carruth topic before you got your super chat in. But we can. Okay, do you want to just answer this question real quick before we move on to one of the other subjects? Then, doesn't the imminent threat only matter to what Carruth was thinking or feeling at that moment? Well, it has to be reasonable.
Yeah.
Like either way. So subjective. I mean, yeah, I think it probably helps for him to have a subjective, feeling in the moment that he had a fear of fear of imminent threat coming from this person. But at the same time, it has to be reasonable, right? Because even if he might have an irrational fear of spiders, and there's a spider on someone's shoulder, so he shoots them, that would be objectively unreasonable. So there's still a reasonable component to it.
Yeah, it's got to be reasonable.
Yeah. So, unless did you guys want to add anything about the Kim Potter?
I mean, Nick's covering it. I mean,
Yeah.
and shout out to Nick and shout out to him for keeping the stream grift going. I'll probably try to hop on there before I pass out, into oblivion. But I think it's something definitely to watch. I've had people reach out to me about tasers and some of the protocols about tasers. I'm actually probably going to be interviewing somebody, a law enforcement officer who's very trained in them specifically. They're probably going to do like voice only, so they don't dox themselves, and get hate. But it's something that I think it's a big deal, and I think to me, Nate, I mean, you've worked with law enforcement. My opinion is the Kim Potter trial will have more of an impact on law enforcement behavior than even the Chauvin trial. And let me know if you would disagree with that statement, that it may impact their day-to-day behaviors, policies. It may have a broader impact than the Chauvin trial.
I'm not sure, though. I'm not sure. For two reasons. Well, I think Chauvin's impact is nationwide. So I disagree with that statement about the impact, because Chauvin's impact was about how police treat people, and you start seeing that even in cases here in New York where they would tackle a guy and everybody's like, oh, it's a guy, all right, it's all right, because they don't want the guy dying on them. And then
that's a good point. That's a fair point.
So I think nationwide, and I think even worldwide, the Floyd was a phenomenon. Because that was just excessive force. The Potter case is really just one about an accident. This was an accident, right? Taser was an accident. And this is whether this accident, because I don't think everyone who who watches that tape, who understands what happened, everyone agrees that this was an accidental difference. She didn't mean to kill him, right? But now we're talking about, is there any criminal liability for that accident? Now, so everybody understands, accidents are usually civil. And we're talking about negligence, right? So we have negligence in spades, right? She's been negligent. She should, out of the thing. But now, criminally, we're talking about things like culpable negligence or recklessness. And the difference is that for culpable negligence or recklessness, there's a risk, and you disregard that risk, and that causes someone's death. So in this case, using this case as an example, the Potter case, the regulations say that you're supposed to carry your taser on your weak hand and your firearm on your strong hand side. And the reason why is because if shit hits the fan, you want to be able to grab your gun quickly, and you don't want to get them confused. So you don't want to have them both on the same side. So for instance, in this particular case, if Kim Potter, if she had them both, her taser and her gun on the same side, and this happened, then you have culpable negligence or even recklessness, right? It was reckless to do that because you could pull the wrong one and kill someone. But in this case, since she had them both on opposite sides and pulled the wrong one by accident, now that kind of takes out that culpable negligence piece and gives you that pure accident. So now you kind of figure it out, well, if she had them on the right side and she followed the procedures, but she just pulled the wrong weapon and screamed taser, 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 how do you prove that culpability? So I think, and part of it right now, I think there's a little bit of an overcharge here with this kind of, intentional murder. And then you got to have this reckless murder piece of it. But it really depends now on how the jury is going to feel about whether this accident, because again, I think everybody can see it's an accident, whether this accident should be charged criminally. And I think that'll be the issue if she gets convicted, and that will be the issue on appeal. Because it's just like one of the cases here with Starbucks. I think in Starbucks, there's somebody had a peanut allergy, and the person was like, "Don't give me something," and it probably had peanuts in it, and the person gave it to them by accident, and the person went to anaphylactic shock and almost died. Right? That person's not going to be charged criminally for that, unless you can prove that person intended to do that, But if it was an accident, yeah, Starbucks is going to have to pay. That person's probably going to lose their job, but it's not a criminal act. So again, it's still a lot of facts that have to come out, but I don't know where we're going to go with that.
Yeah, and another thing that I was thinking about was is it actually that they have a policy that the taser is always on your non-dominant hand, or is that just best practice? Because that may make a little bit of a difference, I think. Or would you agree with that?
Well, I would have to look at their. I know for us, we had a policy of how to hold your weapons. Your weapon should be this should be here, this should be here, this should be here, this should be over here, and it was written into our SOP, standard operating procedures. How you wear your weapons, how you wear your uniform, and and they should tell you. If something happens and you don't do it the way we told you to do it, then you're on your own, right? And you could be held liable for not doing what we told you to do. And we've seen that in many cases. We saw this in this is something that happened in recently in the Chauvin case, right? They were saying that our policy says you're supposed to turn them over and blah 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 blah. And they said, well, you didn't follow policy. He committed a crime because he didn't follow the policy. So that's what you're looking at here. The policy now, again, their policies may be differently, but I would be very surprised if their standard operating procedure didn't tell you how to wear a uniform, what uniform to wear, and how to have your duty belt and how to have your weapons and stuff on. If they didn't, then that's crazy. But I'm assuming they did because I'm assuming they did. They had to. It's just like.
It seems like that would be the policy because that's the policy, like
Right.
you said, Nate. I think I've heard of that policy in every law enforcement agency I've heard of, anywhere I've ever heard of it. I mean, that non-dominant hand versus dominant hand, that seems to be the policy. So it'd be weird if there was an abrogation there, if that was a different policy. And they're going to need to, obviously, they'll need to bring up that evidence, and that's material evidence, right? Because what the policy is, what they're trained on, is very material. So that's what I'm waiting to hear in that case.
Well, here's an interesting question. Does Dante Wright's resistance authorize Kim Potter to use deadly force? And if so, does that make a difference?
That was Nick's point yesterday. Shout out to Nick. I give credit where credit's due. And he made that argument that she was actually justified to use a higher level of force because of what he was doing. He was fleeing. The car's a deadly weapon, right? So she was authorized to use that. But I think the problem is, authorized or not, because of the perceived negligence, right? Because of the perception of negligence. It's going to be perceived that the higher level was not warranted, even though it might have been.
Because didn't she say that she didn't intend to use deadly force?
Yes, and the problem is that the officer in effectuating an arrest is essentially, it's a self-defense claim, right? The person is using force, and I'm trying to overcome that force to effectuate an arrest. So it's a classic self-defense claim, except in the law enforcement context. And so everyone understands there's no such thing as accidental self-defense. Right. Self-defense is, I meant to do what I've done. And in Calvin, I meant to kill these people, right? There's no accident here.
Because I had a very good reason for it.
Yeah, because I had a very good reason. And her defense here is, I meant to tase him, but I created an accident. So let's say even if it's right, if she was able to use deadly physical force, the fact that she's already admitted that she wasn't trying to use deadly physical force, she wasn't, kind of erases that. And she's not going to go and I accidentally lucked up into self-defense. That's just not the way it goes. That's not a legitimate reason to employ deadly physical force. That you have to intentionally do it. And she admittedly intentionally didn't do it. I mean, she's admittedly said, I didn't do it intentionally.
Yeah. So, I also wonder if Dante Wright's family, I haven't actually paid attention to whether or not they filed a civil suit against the city for a wrongful death action. Because I would be curious.
I would imagine they would, but
I would be curious if part of that would be a claim that they were negligent in causing his death because didn't the taser look a lot like a normal gun?
Yeah,
I would expect a taser to normally look very, very different, and for exactly this kind of a reason, right?
But
so the choice of tasers, I feel like I wonder if that would be maybe some potential grounds for liability.
See, a lot of people don't realize tasers are deadly weapons in I think almost every state. Tasers, and what that means, they're just as dangerous as guns. In Georgia, for instance, the Rayshard Brooks case, where the guy pointed a taser at the cop and the cop shot him, and people were like, "Oh, she pointed a taser at him." Tasers are deadly weapons, and in this case, I understand we call them less than lethal options, but if you are a regular person, you point a taser at somebody, they're going to charge you as if you pointed a gun at somebody. That's an aggravated assault. So I do understand the difference in the weapon, and also the weapons are so similar. That's why there's a pistol grip. These aren't you remember back in the day when you had the tasers that look like remote controls, the little electrical beam that those aren't the tasers of the day. So we'll see. It's a tough case.
They do have a different feel, though, right, Nate? I mean, for me, whenever I shoot even regular guns, right? I mean, you can have different pistols that have different feels. They have different balance, right? So
it's tough when you got somebody, when you're struggling with somebody. I've done it before accidentally too. Like say when you're struggling to try to arrest somebody, and I'm trying to pull out pepper spray, and I pull out an aspartame. Now pepper spray is like level 3. Aspartame is like almost right below a gun, right? Those are two different levels you're supposed to be on. But in your heat of the moment, you're grabbing something and they feel similar, and you pull it out. You're like, oh shit, I pulled the wrong thing. So that's why both of them being pistol grip like the way they were, and it's it's just tough. It's just tough. Don't get me wrong. Him resisting didn't help. But it's tough to make that argument that she should have known based on the way the weapons are designed. It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully that'll get started soon, so we can sort of get to the evidence in this case. And
opening arguments are set for next week, right? Set for the 8th, right?
Next Wednesday.
Yeah, next Wednesday.
Yeah.
Man, oh man. Well, we'll see what happens. It looks like Nick is super committed to streaming, even though jury selection is like pulling teeth.
Oh God,
bit by bit.
Yeah, bite by bite, you might say.
One bite at a time. Picking a jury one bite at a time.
Yeah, I don't know why he went jury selection for this, but it's about all these other cases aren't televised.
Well,
though. So
it is interesting. Yeah, if any of the other ones were televised, I think that would be a better option. Yeah. We're in the meat of a lot of these cases, the meat of the Maxwell case, getting into the meat of the Jussie case. So a lot of stuff that you can clamp down on. Oh, Theranos too, Elizabeth Holmes. Don't forget about that psychopath, right?
Yeah.
You want to talk about a blonde that's dangerous.
Who doesn't blink ever.
He doesn't blink.
Like body language tells much. Yes.
Yeah, seriously. So on that note, let's talk about another crazy lady. Let's talk about Gislaine Maxwell.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Maxwell.
So I'm super grateful that Joe Neerman, aka Good Logic, is going down to the courthouse every day.
He's our man on the street.
It's amazing. Doing direct reporting.
With no phone for all day. I mean, look, as a millennial, that's not possible. I can't do that. But
he's not a millennial. Let's be real.
He's a boomer, but I love him.
He's literally a grandpa. He has grandchildren. I love it. I love pointing that out. Now that I know about him.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, he mentioned that a couple weeks ago on Eric Hunley's live stream. I thought that was great. I was like, I would not have picked you as a grandfather, but now.
Oh, I 100%. I 100% see that. 100%.
Well, his personality I can see as a grandfather, of course. Yes. Like he has that kind of like, it's almost like an old world sort of personality. I don't know. I can't really describe it. Yes, but like.
Your old based grandpa.
He didn't seem old enough to be a grandfather, is my point, basically. But yeah, I love the fact that he's going in, he's coming out, he's talking about, the pilot testifying to all of this stuff, and he's giving his impressions of these guys and Jane, the victim. And so far it's been really interesting. I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with his stuff, but I saw the first couple of days of it, and people are talking about the pilot that named the big names that showed up on the manifest that he knew flew on the Lolita Express supposedly. Mm-hmm. And everybody's talking about Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. But the one that really caught me was Senator John Glenn. that one was very interesting because I don't know how much of like NASA history you guys have followed. Mr. Bites is a huge space nerd.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
oh yeah.
My favorite with John Glenn was when the skeptic that was following him around, there's a guy who was just dogging him everywhere he went, would not stop following John Glenn, and was like, "You didn't land on the moon." It's like,
I thought that was Buzz Aldrin.
Should go there. Was it Buzz Aldrin?
I think it was Buzz. Yeah,
and he was the one that was
okay,
like,
whatever.
Get out of here! He like beat them up or something.
He punched him in the face, and it was glorious. It was glorious.
Yeah, that's a very Buzz Aldrin kind of move, I think, from what I know about him or from what I've heard about him. But John Glenn, so of course it's widely known now that the NASA group, these guys that first went went to the moon, went into outer space from the United States, they would go to Florida. They were based in Houston, but they would go to Florida on these trips without their wives, and all hell would break loose and all kinds of parties and all.
What happens in Florida stays in Florida, Alita.
Yes, loosey goosey philandering going on, right? But John Glenn was one of those guys that I thought was like, he was like the Boy Scout of the group. He was like trying to get everybody to tighten themselves up again. So it's very, very surprising to me to see his name come out of this trial. Either he just did a very good job of keeping his name squeaky clean back in the 60s and like, or maybe he was back then and then he loosened up later. I don't know. Or maybe, we just didn't really know the real John Glenn, or maybe there actually were some cases of individuals that did fly on this plane that actually were kind of Boy Scouts like John Glenn. Maybe his character remains consistent and not every single flight had funny business going on. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah.
That was the point. That was the point. Is that let's not equivocate, because yes, correct, both Trump and Clinton were on, but when one was on once and the other was on 27 times, it's like, like it's different. And there are totally legitimate uses for, one time, getting on somebody's plane one time and taking a trip once, right? What it says is like, hey, who's on the frequent flyer list, right? That raises a lot more questions. Especially, let me say, if you're well connected to the rich and the famous. I mean, look, some guy's like, hey, use my jet. It's cool. Just use my jet. Come here. It's no big deal. Just use my jet. Right. That once or twice, I'm not too worried about.
Well, again, you just don't know, right? You don't. Two things. Cindy McCain came out recently saying that we all knew what Jeffrey Epstein was about, right? And if you even look back at when Trump was hanging out with Epstein at the parties, Trump was saying, "Hey, yeah, Epstein likes him young." So this is not like this. This was an open secret about this, but that doesn't mean that Trump was involved in any of this stuff just because this guy likes young girls or whatever, or flying on his plane. Something like going to the island. Okay, now it's like Clinton went. I think Clinton went to the island. Who didn't? Dershowitz go to the island. Like going to the island.
And Viva said, and I actually brought that up early on, and I didn't know that Viva had spoken to Dershowitz, and Dershowitz had an excuse, and Viva said he believed it was credible, right? So, and I believe that there are reasons even to go to the island. Maybe you got invited to the island once and you didn't know what was going on. But once again, if you are a frequent flyer to the island, I am asking a whole lot of questions, right?
Fool me once, fool me twice, right?
Yes, yes. Because once I believe once you go there and you get that vibe, because you kind of get that vibe, and you're like, all right, I'm kind of going to excuse myself and never come back, right? Like,
Hey, it could be that, or it could be more. You just don't know. So I think it's dangerous to do either one. To over assume just because you were on the plane that you were involved in any of the type of stuff that's not legit. But then to under assume and say well it's all legitimate. But I will say this, and I'll go on record saying this: I'm more worried about Bill Clinton than I am with President Trump. Right.
100%.
I can definitely see Bill Clinton being involved in this. Trump is like, because Trump, we know he likes Playboy models and older women.
He likes a very specific Eastern European model.
Yeah. And older women.
He doesn't build them in the factory, they just put them out like that, He's not in his history of dating. He's not really into the super young women. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, Trump is a different type of breed. Clinton. I'm not surprised.
Lewinsky was very young. She wasn't underage, but she was like in her early 20s when they had their
with
affair.
him, he likes that power dynamic. He likes that thing. And some people, that's just their thing. That's what they're into. And listen, I wouldn't. I'm not kink shaming people till it's illegal. and this is illegal, right? You know,
this
what
is
Epstein
illegal.
was doing was 100% illegal, right? But I mean, if you'd waited till these girls are 18 and you just let it date 18, 19-year-olds and it was fully consensual, fine, you guys do whatever you want to do, right? And once again, by the way, Gislaine admitted to some menage a trois. That's actually on the record. You know, she's admitted to that they've had these, you know, other encounters. There's nothing criminal about that. That's not criminal behavior because the people that she admitted to were adults. The problem is the non-adult and non-consenting part.
Oh no, wait.
It's true. I guess menage a trois are still legal in some states, but that's
so
like
I was actually trying to get this one from Eric. Hey Eric, by the way, happy to see you here in the chat.
He owned Miss Universe.
So yeah, Trump did own Miss. That's actually how he met Melania. She was Miss Universe, I think, or maybe one of the runners up or something. I can't remember, but yeah, I mean that was his grift, right? That was how he found.
Everybody has their type of game. Exactly. They're running their game and they're doing it. That's totally legal. There's nothing about it consensual, you know, clearly.
Yeah.
So
that's a far cry from 14-year-olds, you know, in private.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know. It's again, like I said, I can see and I don't want to be, I feel like I'm spitting it for Trump, but I can honestly, I'm less concerned about Trump being involved in it because, like you're saying, I can see, hey, jump on this plane, I'm going to, you know, that type of thing. And I don't think Trump ever went to the island. Those are separate things. Bill Clinton going to the islands.
With Trump, the only thing I'm more willing to believe is the Putin blackmail story. You know, he knew exactly what Trump was into. He got a bunch and, you know, had some blackmail material on him. I'm more willing to believe that than that he went to Epstein's island, right? If you ask me which one to believe, I'm like, well, you know, Putin can generate some people that Donald Trump is into. Epstein can't, right?
But we know
was not what he's into.
Don't we know who went to Epstein's island? There's like a list of people who went to Epstein's island.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of people.
Yeah, Trump is not on that list, right?
Yeah. As far as I know, anyway. But you know, another example here of somebody else that was on the flight was Kevin Spacey. Now, I mean, his name is Mud in Hollywood because of similar things, but with men. So this Epstein's type was not Kevin Spacey's type, maybe the age, but maybe not the gender. So that's another, you know, interesting wrinkle for maybe not every single one of these flights involved this kind of behavior, this kind of incident. So
it could have, but it just could have involved young men, right?
Young boys.
Yeah, okay, that's true too. That's fair.
There are young boys that are sex trafficked too. It's not just just happen to women. It's not just a problem with women.
The reason why I say that is because there hasn't been any allegation that there were any underage boys involved in this case.
In Gislaine's case, but you know, once again, Epstein is now RIP, so we'll never know about the other side of the story.
Dead men tell no tales, right? Dead men tell no tales. We'll never know what Epstein knew because he committed suicide, you know.
Of course he did.
Yeah, totally suicided himself.
100% not sus.
Every time I've ever taken a poll, they've been like, okay, let's just see who believes, who doesn't believe. It's like all army of ones like jammed in the chat. You know, like I've never gotten anybody.
Epstein, those are like the truths. What is it? The Barnes truths, the truths of justice, right? Epstein did commit suicide.
And the left and right agree on it, but for different reasons.
Yeah. But one of the things that I think that the prosecution is probably going to be struggling with here is memory, because these allegations, like Jane, the victim, for example, she's the one that testified on day 2 and day 3. She testified that she got first approached in like 1994. Like this is all 20 years ago. So there's a legitimate possibility that her memory could have changed over time, and I would say even especially with memories that are associated with trauma, because the human brain has very interesting ways of healing itself and protecting itself from bad memories. So it's and the further away you get from those incidents, I think the more likely it is that your brain is going to protect itself long term from those memories. So it's going to be interesting to see how well the prosecution or the defense is going to be able to kind of attack these witnesses and what they do remember from 15, 20 years ago, all of these things that happened. I know that they tried on cross-examination. Good Logic was saying that on cross-examination, they were really trying to push on that. And that is probably legitimately one of the biggest areas that the defense can can jump in and really sort of attack the prosecution's case. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's tough being a defense attorney and having a sympathetic witness for this particular case, right? 14 going on this, all these powerful men. You've just heard the names Trump and this and Bill Clinton, former presidents, and now you got this 14-year-old victim. Well, no, she's not 14 now, but you have this victim and trying to reliving these events. It's tough because you want to impeach them in a certain way, but then you don't want to make them even more sympathetic by the big bad, guy going after them. So it's not a good day for the defense, but I think you have to be able to do your job in a way that's effective. I've seen it done a couple of times. I don't know if you guys ever. Have you guys ever seen the 10 Commandments of cross-examination?
Oh yes, I've seen that one. Yes.
All right,
so this is
a
story. There's a story the guy tells. There was a huge fire here in New York where it killed a whole bunch of women. It was downtown. It was in the garment district. So a whole bunch of women got killed in a fire, and it was a negligence case. So they had one of the victims go on the stand, and she gave her testimony. She gave it, this is exactly what happened, right? She was a young woman, and she gave her testimony. So the defense attorney gets up, and he says, well, can you tell me that story again? So she says exactly the same story again, but she missed one word. Just one word. She said, instead of saying like it happened on, so 3 of us, she said it happened to 2 of us. Something like it was just one minor misword. And then after she finishes the recitation on cross-examination, he says, you messed up the second time with the one word. She says, oh yeah, I messed up. I meant to say this. I meant to say that. But what that meant to show was that her whole testimony was so orchestrated that she was saying the same thing word for word, and he was able to pick out the one time she made a mistake, and she said, yeah, I made a mistake. And then he said, well, say it again, the way you really want to say it. And then she said the same exact thing word for word for word for word. So he was able to destroy her credibility without attacking her, but just by having her say the story 3 times exactly the same way, right? Because if you're telling a story that's traumatic, the story won't be said the exactly word for word the same way. It'll be so different. You see? Legal mindset knows.
I uppercutted my laptop. That's how I know. Yeah.
But that's the way you attack a sympathetic witness like that without actually attacking the witness, right? And that witness now is not credible at all because it's like, oh, you just rehearsed, you got rehearsed.
But then how did they get away with that without getting an objection from the opposing counsel for asked and answered?
Well, first of all, they have to object. I mean, see Richard's Rittenhouse 2021.
That's true.
But second of all, I mean, you can rephrase, or I think there's a point about recollection, right? If you're trying to, point out this fact, this is something that's been permitted. In fact, memory testimony has been permitted, right? That's an expert that is permitted. And I think in the Maxwell case, we actually have an expert, and shout out to Eric Hunley, who's the best of the best on this, on the flaws in human memory, right? Because memory is flawed. This is a factual thing, right? Memory is very flawed. Our memory is based on, the times in which we recalled it. So the more frequently we recall something, the more we remember it, right? But also each time we're recalling it, we're saving different data. So our memory is actually changing, right? And it's scary to think that your memory is something that's not, flawless, but that we're just humans, and this is how we do it. Our emotions impact our memory. So you can feel a certain way about an incident, right? And then that feels as if that happened. This is also how Trump TDS happens, right? People feel strongly about something, so it's as if it happened. It's just as real to them internally as if it actually happened.
Yeah.
And this is good testimony. That's a good expert.
That reminds me of revisionist history. Malcolm Gladwell. He has a podcast, Revisionist History. I don't know if you guys have listened to it, but it's so good. It's so good. I love that podcast. But he had one exactly on memory, and he was actually using 9/11 as an example and talking with one of his neighbors, sort of like going through conversations that they had on that day or several days later or something, and completely different memories of that conversation or those interactions that they had, were, depending on whether it was him or his neighbor, they both had like very different memories, because he had some kind of a flight that he had that he was supposed to go on for work or something. And she remembered that he was like, well, I'm flying tomorrow. And she was like, what? That's crazy. But he was like, why would I be flying on the day after 9/11? Like, no one was flying. That's nuts.
Yeah,
Are you kidding
yeah.
me? But it's a very, very interesting thing, because you would think that events that are very significant in our lives, for precisely that reason, because they're very traumatic, they're very historical, we're like, we want to remember these things. You would think that we would have actually a better memory of them, but it seems like the opposite tends to be true, because we, over time, for whatever reason, our memories are just malleable.
This is the reason also why that lie detector tests are not admissible in court, because people, it's funny, because just like with the whole plane after 9/11 thing, if that person was to take a lie detector test and said, did you fly on September 12th, they would probably pass the lie detector test, right? Yeah, I flew, knowing that that's impossible, because the lie detector doesn't detect if the person is actually telling the truth. It's just detecting if they believe what they're saying is true.
Yes.
So, and that's a huge difference.
Yeah, and Eric Hunley also pointed out in the chat. He also talked about the Brian Williams story about being in a helicopter that got shot down in Iraq, I think, or was it Afghanistan or something? Remember how there was like that whole thing? Everybody was like lampooning him for it, and Malcolm Gladwell was almost like, he was like, I feel like I'm actually trying to like justify his position, like maybe like so that people can understand where he was coming from, that he wasn't lying, he wasn't trying to like score points and across America. Like, he just legitimately didn't remember, which I don't know, one way or another. I still wasn't entirely convinced by that particular episode on Brian Williams, but yeah, I mean,
but because people, we can all have the same experiences, but we all have different inputs, right? Your eyes are different than my eyes. My historical references are different than yours. So when I take in this information, I'm processing it through a whole different system than you guys are. So we can all experience the same events, and that's why a lot of times when traumatic events happen, the first thing the police do is separate everybody, right? Because if they get everybody together, the person with the most dominant personality is the story that everybody's going to appear to. Oh yeah, the guy was black. And you're like, no, the guy was actually white. Here's the videotape. Because the dominant personality, then okay, we believe what I believe, and that's the whole jury of one phenomenon too. When you got one dominant juror who then takes over and whatever they think is what the jury thinks. So it's fascinating how we interact with each other, but also how we experience different events, because that's essentially what happens, especially with with memory. So.
Yeah, groupthink is a real thing. And also, the media gaslighting is a real thing nowadays, right?
Yeah.
This is why people believe there's black people and that were killed by Kyle Rittenhouse, is because the media, gaslit them for, and gas them up. And not just the mainstream media, but these organizations as well, we're putting out this message that of these facts. And so people now have integrated it. So to remove it is very difficult. It's very difficult to unimplant that, particularly if it's tied to a way you feel.
It's so dangerous with the Kyle Rittenhouse. The thing that makes Kyle Rittenhouse so dangerous is because those people, the Hollywood elites, all these people, honestly, and I would say honestly believe that Kyle was a white supremacist active shooter who went there to kill people indiscriminately. They honestly believe that. And they believe that because they've been told that all this time. And there's nothing that you can say or I can say that's going to change their mind, because they're not watching every hour of the trial, right? They're not seeing any of the facts. They're just going to believe.
Most people have lives. They're busy and they can't.
Yeah.
They can't. It's understandable.
Yes.
It's just sad, because this Kyle will never have a normal life, because there's like now they're trying to.
You guys saw about ASU, right? You saw about ASU.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're trying to get me out of school.
And they were the ones saying. I mean, they're out there. The students are out there, pacing around, yelling and screaming and saying that he shot black people, right? I mean, and that this is, these are students
totally
that are supposedly educated. You should. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad. But again, it's more of the blame on the media, because they've been telling you Trump is a racist, Trump is a liar, Trump is horrible for all this time, and that it's interesting, because it's hard to if you look at just the news, the majority of the news, especially on Breonna Taylor, on Kyle Rittenhouse, was all just lies and made up, and most people only got those lies. So, for us, why would they believe us over them, right? They've been believing ABC News for the past 50 years, So it's a world that we have to live in, but it's a world that we have to fight against. So thank God that Nick got his traction, because just imagine how many people were woken up by those streams Nick were doing. And that we were on. Right.
And we have gotten so many thank yous for that. I mean, personally, I've had people reaching out and say, thank you. Oh my God, I'm so glad I found you. I'm so glad I found Nick, and I'm glad that you guys are here. And look, I know a lot of guys that are here, I mean, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it, Alita. But I mean, if it was my chat, I would say one's in the chat if you found us during the Rittenhouse stream. I don't want to do that though.
Let's do it.
I don't want to take over.
You can put a poll. Put a poll in the chat.
Yeah.
I mean, we could have people press 1 in the chat if you found us through Nick Rekieta.
Yeah, 2 if you're maybe 2 if you're an OG, maybe 2 if you were
two if you're pre-Rekieta.
Yes. Well, hold on. Don't forget, you only had like 6,000 subs before pre-Rekieta.
Yeah, so most people are here. One.
And we were like,
somebody put an 8.
See, like you and I, Alita, were like neck and neck, and then you just blew up, and I'm like, oh man, this is awesome. It's so great. I mean, it's really awesome. It's really awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, it's been a really wild ride. It's crazy thinking that there are literally like 37,000 people who are like, yeah, I'd like to hear this person talk a little bit more. Like, why not?
Yeah.
So,
and going from 30 live view for me, going from like, I'm doing a stream, I got 30, 40, 50 live viewers. So yeah, there's like casual 600, it's like, oh, this is great.
1,000, right? They're like, what the hell all these people come from? Yeah. I know. It's been crazy. Like 200-300 were good. That was like 2,000-3,000. It's like, wow, there's a lot of people here watching this stuff live. One thing that I found though is that when it's interesting, when people find the truth, they want more truth. And they want you to tell them more truth. And that's why I think a lot of the videos that we do are so powerful and get so much traction, because the whole Kyle Rittenhouse stuff was just about the truth. So many people just even on Twitter said, think about this. There was remember I put a video up on Twitter that one person who was commenting on a trial who said, hey, I didn't know that somebody pointed a gun at Kyle until the trial, until I saw the guy testify. Yeah, I pointed a gun at trial in the trial. So this person had been commenting on the thing for almost a year and a half, saying Kyle's a white supremacist, saying he was and now found out that somebody pointed a gun at him. It's like, wow, I didn't know that at all. And that's what I'm talking about. Just that little fact changed that person's whole perspective. And just like on Twitter, you'll see if you search Twitter for, there's a whole bunch of people on Twitter now who are talking about, I was fooled because I thought Kyle shot black people. Like there's a whole group of people who are fooled because they think, and it's a shame because the facts do matter, and there's a lot of people out there who have been fooled, who are really it's like I forgot what's that movie that you live in where you ever saw They Live with Roddy Piper, where everybody has where you have the glasses that shows you the real world, but when you take off the glasses it shows you what you want to see. I think that's the world we're living in now. You got to look at it. They Live
with like rose tinted glasses or something.
Well, yeah, the aliens had taken over the
same concept.
Yeah, aliens had taken over the planet, and there was like some glasses that he found, and we put the glasses on. He gets to see the world as it actually is, and it's the truth is like so, and that's what he had to try to figure it out. So it was like one of those pre-Matrix movies. Have you seen it, Legal Mindset?
I believe I saw it a long time ago. I remember that one. But it's the same concept
come out?
as the red pill, anything else.
The 80s. Like it's the 80s movie. It's Roddy Piper. He's dead now, but yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, this concept of waking up, this concept of getting woke to the woke, right, and seeing the grift. It's hard though because we do live in this ecosystem, and you talked about that, Nate. Of course, I came from the same scenario where yes, I at my core had a lot of these core values that now are identified with the center or right?
Yeah.
But we were all in this media, this media cycle, right? That you had to break yourself away from. And just, it's hard to say, it's really hard to come to the conclusion that a lot of people are lying about stuff. And for the longest time, the hardest barrier for me to jump over was that how can so many people be lying? Or at least not even lying. If you want to give them the benefit of the doubt, spinning stuff in such a way as to be very deceptive, right? Incredibly deceptive, right? In how they're painting facts. But nowadays, it's gone from deceptive to just out and out lying, right? There are straight up lies that went down. For example, I caught one the other day, which was about one of the jurors in the Kim Potter trial. She brought up when she was asked about incidences of police shooting. She was asked by the attorney on voir dire, what cases have you seen that are similar to this one? And she goes, oh, well, police are shooting people all around the country, like in the Arbery case. And that was what she brought up, was the Arbery case. Well,
Oh, wow.
I beg Legalbytes forgiveness for being late. My mind is not working completely, and I decided to get into a discussion with Nick about whether Marbury versus Madison was correctly decided or not. So I apologize.
Judicial review, huh?
Did you wait? Hold on. Who was on what side of that? Because I have not seen that
Nick
yet.
says no. I say yes.
You think? Okay.
Interesting.
We're not going to go there yet. Let's. Hey,
I think Marbury versus Madison was correctly decided. We can discuss that too.
Yeah, I think so too.
Let's discuss it on your channel. That's a good.
Okay,
one.
that's fine.
Yeah, that is an interesting discussion. We could definitely go over it. Well,
But
oh yeah.
But one thing about Marbury, we all can admit, it was probably one of the best judicial decisions ever written, right? Because that guy Marbury had to parse the politics and all that stuff, and was like,
It was endlessly creative because they were in a no-win situation. They found option 3.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No matter what you think about the decision, Marbury versus Madison is probably the best Supreme Court decision ever written by a justice, because it did everything and it gave them the ultimate power. It was fantastic.
During the Rittenhouse trial, we talked a lot about snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Marbury versus Madison was all about snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. Absolutely, 100%.
He straight up said the court decides what the law is. That's baller stuff,
and
right there.
Yes, so we have the power, and we deny ourselves the power to hear this case. It's a brilliant solution. It's like, we can't decide for you, we can't decide against you, we can't decide.
And
great.
I only
we have the power to decide everything else.
Yeah.
I only wish we saw such great, because you see such great presidential cases, from way, way, way back in the day. It almost makes you wish that you were there, let me LARP back into that era, because we're never going to get something that monumental. That's monumental.
Nice.
Except for maybe the overturning of Chevron,
Scalia's
which
dissent
would
in
be
Morrison
amazing.
versus Olson was pretty damn solid.
What's that, Kurt?
Scalia's dissent in Morrison v. Olson was pretty damn solid.
Yeah, but
there have been some good dissents, but that's still not quite the same as
Scalia's dissent is basically the law now. It was 7 to 1 or 8 to 1. It was 7 to 1, 8 to 1, and Scalia's dissent is basically the law now. So that's how good it was.
But I'll say this: it's number 3 on my dissent list, because you still got to go with because if you're talking about that, Plessy v. Ferguson's dissent, that's the law now, and you're talking about what's it called, Dred Scott's dissent is the law.
Giant cases,
those are,
and the dissent literally was like,
too.
"This will be the law of the future." Watch. It's like, oh yeah, this is the law now.
Or kind of a war about that.
The one that speaks most of my house, the concurring decision from Brandeis in Whitney versus California dealing with freedom of speech.
Very good.
That's pretty freaking good.
Yeah,
that makes me cry. I'm not afraid to admit it. It makes me cry when I read it. How good it's written. How good it is.
And actually, one of the best logical dissents was VMI, Scalia and VMI. If you guys ever read a dissent, that should be the majority opinion, because the way he broke it down, it's VMI. VMI is probably one of the, that's the Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was the lawyer on that case, but his dissent was phenomenal. This is why people say I'm a Republican, but no, Scalia's dissent, even though I think he was wrong, it was phenomenal dissent.
So let me get this super chat, because we have a new viewer. Starscream 1540 might be a new viewer from the Carl Jobst collaboration I did recently on fraud in the retro video game market. I have a bunch of people that joined recently because of that, and I'm super happy, super grateful for Carl Jobst bringing me into that. But he or she, sorry, I don't want to assume because I can't tell from the name.
You misgendered them. No.
They said new here. What is the lore behind Budge is Jack? So this is coming from the Kyle Rittenhouse live stream of wonder on Nick Rekieta's channel, as we were patiently or impatiently waiting for a jury verdict for many, many days, hoping to hear that he would be acquitted because of the evidence that came out. And every single time that we would be getting into a discussion, the chat would come up and say at some point, Judge is back. judge is back. And then a bunch of people would start saying judge is back, because they would try to get us to clear away from, the 4 windows that you have here, and then try to go back to where Nick had a shared screen with the streaming of the court and whatnot. That maybe the judge would be back, he would have some information for us. So that kept coming up throughout that time period. And then people started to get very creative. It wasn't just judge is back. It was Budge is Jack. It was judge is whack. Budge is whack. All kinds of different fun variations of it. So that's where that comes from, just for your information. So Todd Scott is rude, still debating who is better, Legal Eagle or us. I mean, the answer.
He's trolling. He's trolling. He's trolling. He's
funny,
100% trolling.
Of course.
Why do people think we all hate Legal Eagle? Sometimes, like I think his Rittenhouse, like his Rittenhouse thing was good on the law. But then at the end, when he said that Rosenbaum had a claim of self-defense against Rittenhouse, I'm like, where the hell is he getting that from? How does someone chasing someone down and lunging for their gun while screaming "F you" have a claim
Did he
of
say
self-defense?
Rosenbaum? I thought he said Huber Grauskowitz.
No, he said Rosenbaum specifically. I went back and watched it. He said
Okay.
Rosenbaum had a claim to self-defense. Well, he said all 3 of them. He said you'd have to.
I mean,
that
you
Rosenbaum-
That's sort of like saying that everybody can claim self-defense. You can always claim it, and then you have to, prove it, right? I mean, and Rosenbaum would have absolutely failed that analysis, right?
Rosenbaum, no.
Yeah, it's dishonest. The point is it's dishonest framing, and to frame stuff as a equivalency, which I get mad at, and I've got mad at even Nate. I've come at you for that. I get really heated about these false equivalencies. But that one is egregious, right? And it's disingenuous, right? Sometimes we can make it in good faith, and then we'll think about it and say, okay, maybe that is a false equivalency, and we'll pedal back.
Yeah.
But he had time to think about that. His videos are pre-produced. He wasn't a stream that he was thinking live, and you see the process like we have here, where Kurt will say something or Nate will say something, and I'll rethink what I'm saying. That's not what happened here. He thought about this, he planned it, he edited his video, he knew what he was saying, and he said it intentionally.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I think that his video on Rittenhouse, it started off okay with his his analysis of like what is the law. That was fairly decent, but it was when he started to apply the facts. My biggest issue was, like you said, Legal Mindset, his framing. He was trying to say that these are the facts that are not disputed by either side. But then he also added in some facts that were disputed, but he didn't add all of the facts that were disputed. So, and the facts that were disputed that he omitted were facts that were friendly to Kyle's case. Of course.
Oh yeah, that was my.
He pulled the
So-
That's
He
the
pulled
thing
the
that's really
bigger.
crazy in that video.
Yeah.
I said at the end. First of all, I'm going to just disagree with the panel and any compliment you said about Legal Eagle in this context because it's all trash. But more
I
than
didn't
the point,
compliment him.
yeah,
I
more
compliment
than
on the
point,
record.
The biggest sin was he failed to bring in any facts that would help you understand why the other side was right. He brought in a whole bunch of facts that would help you understand why Kyle should be guilty. And then he says, well, reasonable minds can differ. Reasonable minds can disagree. I'm like, it'd be really helpful if you explained why those reasonable minds could disagree. To be a reasonable mind necessarily means you have reasons. That's what makes it reasonable, that you have reasons. It's like, would you explain any of those reasons? Would you like to discuss any of those reasons? And the answer apparently is no.
Well,
So
he did try. I will say I did see him in a Twitter exchange, with he got into it with Nick, and he got into it about the the zeitgeist, and it's really about this whole larger feeling that's going on right now, this metaphysical thing, and it was a real cop out argument to me.
And he and I also had a couple exchanges on Twitter about it too, which that was the first time that he and I actually have spoken on anything. But I mean, he was saying that what he was going for was a motion for summary judgment type of analysis, which that's also not really a proper way to do it because he didn't frame it. He didn't quite set it up that way. He didn't say that's what he was trying to do. So that was kind of just like the reasoning in his head. So, but I will say this. So, all of the criticisms for that Kyle Rittenhouse trial, I think that really was very misleading. I don't like the way that was framed. I think that either he was struggling with his own bias and did not watch the trial. I do think that was pretty apparent in this case because he was using some video footage that he probably just kind of came across, and that was about it. If he actually sat through trial for the 60 or 70 or 80 hours, however long we all did, he would know that every single witness that got up on that stand was either for Kyle, either gave evidence for Kyle, or impeached themselves because they were obviously not credible. They were obviously not credible witnesses. But I will say this: his video on Judge Schrader, on the other hand, was very fair. And he actually did
fair. I was surprised.
Yeah,
I think it was a clawback. I think it was a clawback because we called the shit out.
Everybody called him out.
I'm giving us credit for that. I'm giving us credit for that. He knows we exist, and he knows we're pushing back on him. So he's gonna actually.
There was so much pushback on the Rittenhouse video that I think he did that to say, okay, I'm going to be fair with this one. Because it didn't even feel like one of his regular videos. It was like, okay, he's really, really going out of his way to be very fair to Judge Schroeder, who in the Rittenhouse video, he more or less go, but it is what it is.
yeah. And but hey, Judge Schroeder got a lot of criticism from the media throughout trial. People calling him a racist, people call, so he could have just gone in lockstep with the media on that video too, and he chose not to. So I am going to give credit where credit is due, whether the impetus for that was because he got so much pushback or because he genuinely wanted to do it on his own. Doesn't really matter so much to me. What matters more than anything is that he was putting good educational information out there that does set the record straight about a particular individual. And I think that is the ultimately the most important part.
Yeah, but the one thing I think failed with because I have a lot of leftist friends who watch Legal, and one thing that the Kyle Rittenhouse video did was make them feel like this wasn't a textbook case of self-defense. It made us feel like, it's just anybody can self-defense, and then when I told them, I said, no, this is textbook self-defense, right? You couldn't plan out self-defense any more possible than that, and it's weird because the moral argument is what everybody's kind of latching to. He shouldn't have been there. He shouldn't have been there with the gun. He shouldn't have done this. And I'm like, well, that's not a valid argument, right? He shouldn't have been there. Was he legally allowed to be there? And was his gun legal? Yes, if those two things are legal, then you really don't have an argument, right? It's just like saying she shouldn't have gone to that frat house, to party. It's the same exact argument. Saying that he shouldn't have been there, okay, if you feel that way, but it's legally irrelevant to the legal analysis. And that's where I think it failed.
Yes. Yeah, I think so too. Well, we have one more subject to get into, even though
Cosby,
well,
right?
I
you gotta get
I gotta go pick up children. So
alrighty.
I will see you guys on the other side.
Okay. Thanks for coming in, Nate. Peace. It was great having you. As always. So definitely. For anybody that for some reason isn't subscribed to Nate's channel already, Nate, where can they find you?
Just type Nate the Lawyer in the search bar. And you should hopefully get me. If you don't get me, then there's a problem. I'm the only Nate.
Links are also in the description below.
There's also a wrestler, Nate the Lawyer, but I'm not the wrestler. So.
Oh man, that's funny.
Links are also in the description below in this video. So,
listen, guys, take care. Good to see everybody.
See you, Nate. So Bill Cosby, Kurt, I know you talked about him recently.
I did a discussion of him last night. The state of Pennsylvania is reaching hard.
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't done a deep dive on this. I just saw superficially. I'm like, oh boy, they're really trying to get a second bite of the apple here. I mean, this. Yeah. So Kurt, maybe you can start off this one since you've done the deep dive.
So the first thing that I think is worthy of noting is in that the petition for certiorari for the Supreme Court to hear it.
Sorry, before we get into the petition, let's do just a little bit of background just to make sure that people are up
was
to.
Was I starting to law geeky? I'm sorry.
Let's
Bill Cosby drugged people.
What's that?
Let's start with Bill Cosby drugged girls. Let's start with that.
So he was found guilty of.
He admitted to it.
He admitted to it because he was found guilty of actually drugging a woman and doing terrible things to them that we can all use our imaginations for, so that this video doesn't get yeeted. Don't imagine too hard though, please. But so he had a criminal trial and there was a civil trial that happened around the same time. So he was expected to plead the fifth in the criminal trial or in the civil trial because of the possibility of criminal liability. But the prosecutor, the local prosecutor, made a press release where they said, we don't expect to prosecute Bill Cosby. And so he took that as, okay, well, I therefore no longer have a Fifth Amendment issue here. So I will then go and testify in this civil case. And so because of that, he, didn't have any Fifth Amendment rights to non-incrimination. But the problem is then the next DA that came in said, no, we want to prosecute you. And they did. And then he was prosecuted and he was found guilty. And then he spent 2 years in prison. And then I guess his defense team appealed because of that prior public statement by the defense, or by the prosecution, by the DA, I should say. And that they made the argument that he relied upon that statement by the prosecutor, that he would not be prosecuted, and that the only reason why he testified to anything was because of that assurance that he got. And which court was this in when they appealed? Was it the Pennsylvania Supreme Court?
Pennsylvania?
Yeah, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court is where this ball stopped so far.
Okay, so they said, you're actually right. We don't allow for prosecutors to back off on their agreements with criminal defendants or potential criminal defendants. They should be able to rely on your statement like that. So that is a potential constitutional issue, a due process issue, really, for any defendant, regardless of whether you think that they have done terrible things, like, is pretty much not disputed. I mean, if you go and see statements that Bill Cosby has made since then, he still maintains his innocence or whatever, but I don't know who else out there is actually believing those statements at this point.
Well,
so not
weird,
many people.
Because he's made an admission and then said he clawed it back, and it's like, just at this point, let it ride.
Yeah. So anyway, but now the DA has decided to file a petition for writ of certiorari, meaning that they are trying to appeal to the Supreme Court of the United States, asking to help them out with getting Bill Cosby back into prison. So, Kurt, why don't you take it from there?
Okay, so the first thing that I think people should know is that the Supreme Court of the United States has the ability to decide federal law, and the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania has the ability to decide state law. So the Supreme Court of the United States does not have any jurisdiction when it comes to state law issues. Now, the writ of certiorari, which is asking the court to do this, spends a total of 1 page, which is kind of hilarious because of how short it is. 1 page on the fact that there are federal issues here in play and not state issues. And I'm like, the 1 page is kind of telling me you have nothing. But they go through the analysis and say, well, they misinterpreted this U.S. Supreme Court case. They've misinterpreted a Third Circuit case. They misinterpreted cases from other federal courts. And so this decision from Pennsylvania is actually based on federal law, and they just misread it. To my money, I disagree with that for a couple reasons. First of all, they also cited a whole bunch of states, including Utah, as part of their analysis. So that it seems to me that they're citing it as what we call persuasive authority, as they're trying to decide their own state law. It's like, well, here's a bunch of things a whole bunch of courts have said on issues similar to this, and we're taking that into consideration as we're trying to decide what our own law is, rather than them basing the decision. So I didn't really buy that argument. And the other thing is that there were not substantial independent state grounds, which I disagreed with too. The writ of certiorari quotes 1 paragraph from the actual decision, and I think the paragraph they quote actually goes against them, because it starts talking about when there's a unilateral promise and they rely to their detriment. So I'm like, okay, this is, and I've sped read the decision again. For my money, the decision's based on contract law or promissory estoppel, take your pick. But either way, it's based on contract law. It's like, okay, the government, they didn't have a formalized plea agreement or formalized non-prosecution agreement, which incidentally, whoever Cosby's lawyers were at the time, that's a huge sin. And I don't know how they could have missed that. It's like, if you want to go down this road, I don't think you just want to rely on, oh, the prosecutor said this one time at a press conference. I think you want to get that one in writing. So major fault for Cosby's prosecutors. But in any case, or apologies, his defense lawyers. But in either case, what the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania said is they've made a unilateral offer that sounds like contract law, and they relied on it. Sounds like contract or promissory estoppel. And so we're interpreting this as a agreed upon contract, like a formalized plea agreement or a formalized non-prosecution agreement, which is also interpreted based on contract law principles. And so like, okay, if it's based on contract law, that's purely state issues. There's nothing for the Supreme Court of the United States to do. So that's a problem. And then the other problem on top of that is there's Rule 10 of the U.S. Supreme Court, which says the Supreme Court rarely grants certiorari merely for misapplication of correctly stated law. So if the Pennsylvania Supreme Court made a mistake and they misapplied the law, the Supreme Court doesn't typically, very rarely, grant certiorari. So between the one page, them having nothing, between the fact that the underlying decision seems to be based on contract law rather than due process, and between the fact that Rule 10 suggests against it, I think there's a very basically zero chance of the Supreme Court granting it. And also, just by way of generalized statistics, the Supreme Court only grants 0.7% or 0.6% of cases. It's like 180 cases a year, or it's less than that now. It's like 120 cases a year out of 10,000 requests. So you would normally skew against, and then back based on all those factors, I think the odds are zero. So how is that for a summary?
That is fantastic. Fantastic. I mean, that's even just getting in the door so that the Supreme Court would even hear it in the first place. Let's even assume that the Supreme Court was like, yeah, this seems like a good case to hear. I mean, just the argument that it would set a dangerous precedent to allow for criminal defendants to be able to rely on press releases by the prosecution. That to me just sounds insane, because we're talking about the prosecution represents the state. They represent the government. I mean, they have all of the weight in the world, right? We talked about this a ton with Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yes, that's exactly where I was going to go with this, Lita, because that's what I'm thinking right now, is that at this point, I'm going to strip the prosecution of as much power and much authority as possible, because, we see how they abuse it. And you don't do that all at once. You do that one step at a time. And this is one step that I think would be, oh my gosh. That was so good. You know what? You're really helping me be my own judge. Legal mindset. All right. Anyway, so that being said, no, but really, it does. This is one step that I think we could scale this back, and I think it would be a win against prosecutorial overreach.
Yeah, because it's the idea that, I mean, if you really get down to it, the argument that this is going to set a dangerous precedent, who would this be prejudicing? It would be prejudicing the state.
Yeah.
Like the state. So are we really concerned about constitutional rights of the state? No.
I'm not
at least as opposed to an individual? No, absolutely not. No. So this just seems like a huge waste of time and resources. And even though I just want to reiterate, Bill Cosby does not seem to be a good guy. We know that he probably did all of the things that he did. He was actually convicted. And then, the whole thing was overturned because of this issue, the bad deeds by the prosecution. So we can agree that Bill Cosby is a bad dude, and agree that the prosecution should not have their way in this case, because it's kind of bad dude against bad dudes.
And to be fair,
we can also criticize the underlying Supreme Court of Pennsylvania decision. It's like, whether or not this is a contract, it's like maybe you're reading too much into it. And also the remedy, because there was a split. It was like 4-3 on the split. 4 people said, this case is gone, no retrial, the prejudice is too much. 3 people said, let's just have a new trial without that piece of evidence, without his admissions coming in, because that's the prejudice. So we can disagree with the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. It's just that, they're the last word on this issue. So whatever.
Yeah, agreed. Legal mindset, were you going to say something else?
I completely forgot what I was going to say.
I'm sorry. It's one of the problems with the panel. You got to get in there. You got to inject. And
that's why I'm trying to say,
when do you press on? When do you press on? And when do you hold back? The dynamic is interesting.
I know. It's a little bit easier with 3 or 4 people on the panel as opposed to 10. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember now. It was that
Okay.
Cosby spent time in jail, right? So this guy, to your point, Alita, is that he spent time in jail and his career is over. He's done,
Yeah.
and it has permanently tarnished his career. So regardless of whether or not he is, spends more time in jail, right, in addition to what he's already spent, right, he is already, 100% done. He's tarnished. His reputation is tarnished. This is a stain on his career. So I think the damage, in terms of like, punishment, and that one of the motives for our criminal justice system, right? He has felt some of that, right? More than probably Smollett will feel, unfortunately.
Yeah. And also his original sentence, I think, was supposed to be for 3 to 10 years. So if it ended up being on the lower end of that, then he'd spent most of that sentence already anyway. So that's another way to look at it. But I know that there are still a lot of people that are still offended by, it's like their sense of justice has been offended by this ultimate result. And I understand that. I get that. I have a lot of empathy for that. But at the same time, we have to make sure that our system is working and that the prosecution is doing exactly what they should be doing, and not more and not less.
All you have to do, by the way, State, is just not make public press releases where you basically say that the person can cooperate. It's really easy. You just cannot make those statements, and you'll be fine.
Exactly. You can just have a new policy.
This sets a dangerous precedent where we won't be able to make representations to defendants in the open anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. Or we're going to have to be more careful about the things that we say in our statements to the press. Okay. Sorry. I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad. I'm sorry. I don't. And I'm not particularly anti-prosecution either. Like I'm not. I think that, I always want to reiterate, there are good prosecutors out there. I know some that actually are interested in seeking justice as opposed to convictions. But Jim Fry, thank you for your super chat. He says wasting resources is what the government does best, one bite at a time. And I
can confirm.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of evidence for that as well. Anyway, I think that kind of wraps things up for us here. So I have links to Legal Mindset and Uncivil Law in the description below, so you can go and check them out. Otherwise, where else can they find you guys?
Legalmindset.locals.com and also The Legal Mindset on Twitter. Make sure it's The Legal Mindset, not Legal Mindset. Don't make the same mistake that Viva Fry makes, because we don't want to copy Canadians. Kurt.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube and also at uncivillaw.locals.com. And also I have a Patreon account now. We're going to have game night, by the way. And by the way, these are things you're now obligated to do, so I might as well tell you about it. Panel.
Are you talking to us or the viewers?
Yes, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. The panel. These are things obligating you.
Was this the thing? Because I saw somebody suggest this, and I was like, "Oh man, that's a good idea." Someone suggested we do like Jackbox games, and we all
yeah. We're going to do like different kinds of games.
Cool.
We'll do Jackbox games. There's also a game called I Dissent, which I bought, which has questions called like a hot dog as a sandwich, and there's formalized rules about voting and stuff, and breaking alliances and making alliances and stuff like that. So we're going to have game night among the panel. So congratulations, we're doing that now.
That sounds great. I love it. I love the idea.
That sounds fun.
And now for my part, if you guys want to really help me out, so go and subscribe to Legalbytes Clips. There's a link in the description below as well. So you can see clips of all of these live streams. So you don't have to watch all 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours sometimes. You can just get some of the meatier portions that are very, very handily taken out by an editor. Otherwise, you can be sure to subscribe to Uncivil Law and Legal Mindset, and Nate, of course, obviously he left already. And otherwise, other than that, be sure to tune in on Saturday for the interview with Natalie Wisco. I'm super excited about that. I'm actually going to tweet out after this to ask people what kind of questions they would like to see asked. So
I gave you a good question.
Oh, that was just snark. And if you guys have not already, if you're interested in gaming and fraud and kind of investing fraud kind of stuff, I will also post another link to the collaboration that I did with Carl Jobst recently. It was a very, very interesting project. He is really at the top of investigative journalism, which doesn't really exist all that much elsewhere these days. So with that, I will basically say goodbye and until next time, until the next video. All right.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.